So I'm Vicky Chown and I'm head urban grower at OmVed Gardens, where I grow lots of heritage varieties of vegetables and support the Seed Saving Network. So I discovered OmVed Gardens serendipitously when looking at Google Maps for a place to do workshops, because I'm also a medical herbalist. So I was looking for a green space in North London to do some workshops. I zoomed in and OmVed Gardens popped up and we started doing some workshops there. So day-to-day work at OmVed Gardens is really varied. It's obviously very much centred around food growing. We grow really unusual varieties of food here that you just can't get in the vegetable shops in any kind of supermarket. And we do that to save seed, to add to our seed network, to work out which ones grow best in our environment, and to share with people and members of the public. So outside of OmVed, I run workshops and educational workshops all about plants. Everything I do is about plants, herbal medicine. I write books and articles, but that's also made its way into my work at OmVed as well. We do lots of educational stuff here, lots of working with the community and volunteer groups. What don't we grow at OmVed Gardens other than beans? Everything. We grow everything at OmVed Gardens. So beans is just one variety, one family of vegetables, but pretty much when people ask me the questions, what do we grow at OmVed? I say, what don't we grow at OmVed? Because we grow so many things, all kinds of things from vegetables, herbs, wild foods. We focus on heritage varieties that are rare and hard to find. So we focus a lot on growing legumes here. We've grown lentils, soybeans, lab beans, pretzel beans, all kinds of different things from all over the world. And we love growing those because they do great things to the soil. They fix nitrogen in the soil and they're a pleasure to watch grow and eat and share with people. The bean seeds are really recognisable as a seed to people. I'm very fond of a pea. Britain is well known for its peas. So we grow really beautiful spring blush peas, which are a sugar snap variety. And we've grown Mrs. Veitch's Perfection, which is a really old heritage variety from the Heritage Seed Library, and that's done really, really well here. French beans also do really well here. So we grow a dwarf French bean called the Hoppy Black, and that is a bean that we've grown for 5 or 6 years now, every year saving our own seed and growing it on. So it's been a successional growth of that bean. It's always done really, really great every year. So some of the challenges for growing beans in an urban environment are largely down to space. When growing a fresh bean, French beans and peas, you kind of have enough space to just pick a few of the plant and eat those. But if you want to grow something like a drying bean, like our Hoppy Black bean, you want kilos and kilos of those dried and stored for winter months. We just don't really have that kind of field space to grow loads of them. We still get a really good harvest though, so happy with that. The other challenges we've had is this year particularly has been a very wet year. A lot of our young seedlings got eaten by slugs, and also it was a lot cooler, which meant that a lot of the germination rates of some of the warmth-loving beans, like French beans, didn't take off so well. Keeping your soil healthy, we tend to not dig our soil too much. We only dig where we have to, like things like when we're digging up old plants or when we're digging up root crops for harvest. Otherwise, we don't dig too deep, so we kind of operate in a no-dig system, but we constantly add new materials, new compost, straw and mulches to our soil, which keep it moist, which mean that bacteria and soil life and all kinds of microbes can thrive in the soil and keep it alive, as well as hold on to nutrients better because it's got that web of strength to it. Specific companion plants that benefit beans, there aren't any that I know of that specifically stop things like diseases or pests. However, there is a system called the Three Sisters, which is a Native American system of farming, of growing beans, corn and squash all in one bed. They support each other really well in a companion way. The corn grows up long and straight. The beans will grow up the corn as a bean pole. And then the squash will grow in between and shade out any loss of moisture from the soil, while the beans fix nitrogen in that soil for everything else to grow. And we found that method really successful for growing beans. So seed saving from beans and legumes is actually really simple. Not too many of them cross-pollinate. So generally you can just allow your bean to grow, allow it to fully ripen on the plant, which means that the pod goes a little bit papery and brown and crunchy. Pick those off and pop them out. And it's just as simple as that. Some beans, like runner beans, they have the likelihood of cross-pollinating, but if you're worried about that, just grow one variety of each type of bean, one runner bean, one French bean, and you're kind of safe. We do quality control when saving seed from beans and any other plants. We try not to save seed from diseased plants. We try to get the best looking plants, the healthiest beans, the healthiest pods, the ones you really want to eat. And rather than eating those, we save the seed from those because we know that their genetic is strong and their ability to fight off disease is strong. It's called roguing, whereby you only take from the strongest, most disease-resistant plants and save seeds from those. So the OmVed Seed Saving Network literally works like a library. We ask people to choose some varieties of seed they want to grow every year. They pick those, grow them out, try to save seed from them because it's not always successful, but we try to encourage and help give the educational things they need to make those seeds become harvestable. They then save those seeds, tell us about their flavour, collect a bit of data on how they grew, did they get diseases, did they grow really well, did they not germinate at all? And then if they're successful and those seeds grow well, we ask them to send them back to us, where we add them to our seed network and we become even more abundant in our seed crops and send them out again next year. So it's kind of like a snowball effect of collecting seeds, sharing seeds, getting even more back and then sharing them more again, which I really love that. It is estimated that about 90% of our vegetable varieties and then therefore seed varieties have been lost over the last 100 or so years since the Industrial Revolution. So up until the Industrial Revolution, pretty much all of our varieties of vegetables evolved and were produced alongside humans in small pockets of the world, and they were proliferated. Obviously, after the Industrial Revolutions, a lot of those were lost. So it's really important that we keep that proliferation of rare and unusual varieties of vegetables so that we don't just have the 3 same tomatoes on the shelf in any supermarket. We focus on seed saving from beans that do well. That's our main protocol here, is that we want our varieties that we grow to grow with ease, to grow abundantly, so that people don't get put off, especially new first-time growers. You don't want them to get put off of growing straight away just because one year failed. We also grow for flavour, which is massively lacking in supermarkets nowadays. Supermarkets grow for being able to transport from far away and being an ease of harvest mainly, and productivity. We grow for flavour and productivity, but also for ease and for their adaptability to the environment we're growing them in. With the Seed Saving Network, we don't just grow vegetables and send seeds out. We also ask our network to save data and information about how that crop grew for them. We do so ourselves too. That data is really important cumulatively. We can work out what grows well where, which leads to a better success when coming to our harvests and saving our seeds. The spring of 2024 was a very difficult spring to grow in, particularly for beans. We had a lot of rain and really cool temperatures, especially at night, which meant that the rain brought with it lots of slugs, which just beheaded our beans as soon as they popped their heads out the ground. And then the cooler temperatures meant that things didn't germinate very well, which meant we had to continually successionally grow and sow bean plants. We felt like we were constantly catching up, constantly removing slugs. We had them kamikazing and climbing 6-foot up bean poles and eating all of our beans. So it wasn't an easy year to grow in at all. To mitigate the slug damage, we haven't used slug pellets in the garden for over 4 years now, even organic slug pellets. So we use a lot of nematodes, which are effective against some form of slugs, but not all, not the massive orange ones. And we hand pick a lot. So we go around in the early morning and the evenings and hand pick a lot of slugs and snails off. We also use something called strolch, which is a mineralized straw, which helps create a barrier. We've used sheep wool, but really it's just luck of the draw. You can do everything, but slugs are everywhere. Beans tend to enjoy wet weather. They need quite a lot of water to grow well and not get dry, and to produce healthy flowers, which then produce the bean pod out of the middle of the flower. I think peas particularly like wet weather. However, wet weather can lead to fungal conditions and, like I said, slug damage. So it's not ideal for it to be constantly torrential raining on them. But I didn't notice that any were specifically happy with the rain though. This spring wasn't the first wet spring we've ever had, and growing vegetables and food, you have to constantly adapt, and we do. So we'll always change and adapt to our environment, but you're just on your toes. The first year, was it 2020? We had a drought in the spring. Nothing wanted to grow because everything was so dry and hot. And the last 2 years have had very wet springs. So growing in the UK especially, you're just always on your toes and you're always adaptive. So to other growers, particularly new growers, the only piece of advice I'd really give is to be adaptive, but also just don't give up. Just because your beans didn't grow this year doesn't mean they won't grow next year. Also try a variety of beans if you can. Fit in some peas, fit in some French beans, fit in some lab beans, and grow a few different things because you never know what might stick. Of all the interesting, almost exotic varieties of vegetables we grow here, picking a fresh pea pod is one of my favourite things to do. There is nothing like a fresh pea. They just come out so sweet and delicious, and nothing like even fresh peas that you buy in the supermarket. I think that's got to be my favourite thing about growing beans, is just having them straight off the plant. To be honest, they barely get to the kitchen because we eat them before they do. The Seed Saving Network started in the first year of lockdown, which wasn't planned, but it happened. So it was quite a slow start to our network growing, but people that wanted to start growing really started growing in those years. And it's just snowballed from there. I think last year we gave out something like nearly 5,000 packets of seed, and our network is growing stronger and stronger every year. And we're getting more and more interest in people learning how to save seed. Even people who have grown vegetables for 20 years, who never saved a single seed because they buy them in, and now thinking, oh, well, actually, that's not how we've grown food for this long throughout history. We've actually always saved our own seed, and they want more of a connection to that. And I think the Seed Saving Network is providing that, at least in our own small way. Growers, vegetable growers particularly, we're also busy scurrying around in the ground, and we've always got our heads in the ground, and we're not really looking up because we're constantly tending to our own fruit and vegetables. So we've made a really concerted effort to connect with other growers and growing sites, community growing sites, community gardens. The Heritage Seed Library is an amazing one, the Incredible Seed Library, and the Gaia Seed Foundation. And we're growing seeds for all of those three this year, and talking to and working with a number of other community spaces for growing. You build strong, resilient networks by working with other people doing similar things to you, and we want that mycelial network to keep growing. At OmVed Gardens, we'll always continue to experiment with new things, new varieties, new ways of growing. I think a lot of these new ways of growing are actually old ways of growing, and we're just reincorporating them. Things have been lost and readdressed and put into action again. This year we grew 24 new varieties of tomato, and we continually experiment with new varieties, but we also continually grow out our previous varieties, specifically the ones that did really well. So what we are is a living seed library. We are not a seed bank. We don't put things in the bank and leave them there for 10 years. We are continually growing out our vegetable varieties at least every 3 to 5 years, if not every 1 to 2 years, and testing them and seeing how they did for us this year. Every year's weather is different, so we have to give our varieties multiple chances before we can say that one didn't work out for us or that one did. Yeah, we grow continually different things, and we're constantly expanding not just what we grow, but how we grow. In the face of the climate crisis, it's tempting to say one variety of food or one thing is going to be the thing that solves it. And beans are great for the soil. They're delicious and they're nutritious for humans and animals alike. However, it's the diversity in our crops and our varieties of vegetables, and most importantly, the way we grow them, the way we harvest them, and the way that we deliver them to humans, that will be the real thing that changes our environment.